It's early October here in Tasmania and spring is well underway. It's a beautiful sunny day after a storm yesterday and the garden is looking great. The apple trees are coming into flower and everything is starting to really show its spring colours. I'm out to do a little bit of planting this morning and thought I'd bring you along again and show you what I'm putting in. Here I have just pulled out what was a very poor crop of potatoes grown over winter and topped it up with some compost, and I'm ready to plant some cucumbers. Now I've created a somewhat rough structure for them to climb on. Cucumbers of course will grow just fine on the ground, but with something to climb they do a little bit better. They really do like to climb, and this is just a few scraps of reinforcement I was able to find. So once again I'm planting my favourite cucumber, which is the muncher, and it gives a really nice cucumber. Samuel, you want to push those into the ground? Okay. We'll plant about 3 seeds in each spot, creating about, yep, that's fine, that's good, half a dozen plants around this structure. You're patting them down, that's a good boy. You go over here.
Do I get the water in something?
And yes, in a minute we'll put the water on. Now I've set that water up already. With a bit of water, those seeds should get underway now. I wouldn't yet plant them outside here. I've only grown them in the greenhouse at this stage. If you're down by the coast here in Tasmania or in a warmer climate, of course outdoors is fine, but here there's still that possibility of a cooler change. Now while we're here in the greenhouse, I did plant some tomato seed in a couple of spots here and nothing has shown through. So it's been about a good month or so and I think it should have come through. So we're going to put some more in, Samuel, and see whether we can have another go. It's whether the seed's not good or there has been some rats around. They could be responsible.
We do have a lot more tomatoes, at least.
So a few more seed in here and, ooh, that's a bit too many. Oh well, we'll get some plants up one way or another. While we're on the subject of tomatoes, these plants have come from the seed that I put into the egg cartons last time I was planting seed, and I germinated them in the egg cartons, and now I have actually transplanted them out into these little pots, thinning them to just single plants. I did plant the seed in clumps, and what I've done is use the scissors to take out the ones that I didn't want. Now not every one was successful, so I think I planted 18 cells with this Roma, and what have I got? I have at this stage about 14 or so there, and with the other 2 varieties I had 6 of each and I've got 5. Whether they are all going to come through and be successful, still can't say. Still might lose some, but I really only need about a dozen of these and around about 3 or 4 each of these to be successful, and that will give us heaps of tomatoes. Now I won't plant these outside for another at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Generally the end of October that I will put them outside, and so they should have really moved along quite a bit by that stage. While we're here in the greenhouse, I'll just show you what's happening here at the moment. We've got, of course, these potatoes, which are still doing quite well, and I have stopped spraying them now. There doesn't seem to be very much fungal attack or blight happening on them now. And with the door open a lot and it a lot warmer, it's really moving past that. I've got 2 lots of broccoli going. There is at the back one that is more advanced and will come to heads very soon. This is a second lot which is moving along very quickly, and it won't take long in this heat. It's really starting to warm up in here today for this to come up to head and give us a crop as well. I will be planting another lot of broccoli outdoors, but I'll talk about that shortly. We've got some lettuce that's from winter and some bits and pieces of lettuce around that is giving us good production at the moment. That will be there for a few more weeks, but it's soon going to become way too hot in here for lettuce and it will just run up to seed. I've put around some new parsley plants from self-sown parsley. I've moved it around. Some of it is still in the same place it grew, but some younger parsley plants that will replace some of these older ones. The older ones are still doing great at this stage, but later, once it starts to heat up, they will go to seed, and I'll leave one or two to seed and keep the cycle going. I haven't actually imported parsley in terms of bringing in seed or plants that I've purchased into the greenhouse here for quite a number of years now, and have kept that cycle going with seed and new plants just coming along, and that's really great when you can achieve that. Out here in the raised beds, everything's looking really nice. Now, you may remember that I planted some spinach plants here a few weeks ago, and I came back a couple of days later and put in some seed. So the seed's coming up now. These are ready for us to harvest a good crop off, and we will continue to harvest those and move to these as they grow. But one thing I'll do today is plant another lot of spinach seed to actually follow on from this one. Now, a couple of days ago, Samuel and I cleaned up some beds here that were still messy from winter, and we also moved the frame for the climbing beans across to this bed. Now, we haven't planted any beans in there. We did put some beans into an egg carton. Now, that's a bit experimental for me. I haven't done that before, so I'm not really sure how it'll go. I wouldn't plant the beans out here for at least another couple of weeks. If those don't look like they're coming up and doing well, I'll then put them directly into the soil. Otherwise, as they come up, we'll put those out and get them underway. But what I am going to plant in here this morning is some more spinach. Now, this is Bloomsdale Longstanding, and look, it might be the last time I plant spinach seed for the spring. In summer, I don't normally grow it because it gets a little bit warm, wants to bolt too quickly. Generally plant it again in autumn. But we'll get some in here and get a nice little crop. We really enjoy some English spinach. We prefer it to silver beet and perpetual spinach. I know they're easier to grow, but the English spinach is just more tasty and easier to use in the kitchen. Now, I was going to plant some spring onions in here, and my wife said, no, look, we just don't use enough of them. And that is really one of the important things, I think, as a gardener, is to actually listen to the kitchen a little bit. And while some things are easy to grow and you might be inclined to grow them, to actually think about, are they being used and are people going to eat them? Personally, I'm quite happy to eat spring onions and enjoy them, but the rest of the family don't seem to eat them as much as I do. So it's really not worth me growing large quantities. I might get a few seeds in somewhere. I'd still have some going and they'll probably self-seed across the season, but it's a waste of time to try and grow things that are not going to be utilized. I'm just putting little clumps of this seed in and spacing it out a little bit. It germinated pretty well on the last time, though it looks like I might run out of this particular spinach seed right now. I've got another packet in my pocket of spinach seed. It's not the same seed, but we'll see how it goes. This is a slightly different variety, so we'll see how that compares. I like the Homey for this little job, though you could do it with lots of tools. I'm just covering those back over a little bit, not deeply. There's expected to be rain later today and a bit of rain during the week, so while this is nice moist ground, it will get plenty of water across the next week and bring it up. While I'm here, I might fit in a little row of radish. Again, something we don't eat a lot of. Mostly it's myself that eats radishes. Children are a bit wary of things that hot. And given that radishes don't stand in the garden for very long, you don't want to grow too many at once. And so it's better to come back and repeat plant every month or so with a little bit more seed. So that's just a few in there. So that's all I'll put in this bed for now. There's a little bit of space where I could either plant more radish or something else as the season progresses. I liked the Bloomsdale long standing, and I think I will try and get more of that seed because, or actually try and keep some seed off what has come, because I think it's a great spinach. Now in this second bed I intend to grow some more broccoli. Now I haven't raised any plants, but I will buy some in the next couple of days and get in. Now the broccoli that comes in outside here will need to be netted because of the white cabbage butterfly, so it limits what I can grow. What I'm going to attempt to do is to grow some beetroot up the sides, so that I'll put just a little row. It's a bit lumpy, this compost. A row along the side here and put some beetroot seed in both sides of it. And I think even though the other comes up high, the beetroot should go okay. It's always a little bit of a question as to whether it's going to be overshadowed too much. So in my pocket here I had a couple of lots of beetroot. Now these have been open before, so the seed will have lost some viability, so I'll be reasonably generous. But if beetroot has a little bit of space, it really does better anyway. Now I'd normally have planted beetroot and carrots probably a month ago. But this year the weather was a lot damper, and that really does slow growth. Also, last year I had a problem with carrot fly in the carrots, and so I've decided to actually not plant carrots at this stage, but wait till a little bit later in the season and think about ways in which I can actually protect them from the carrot fly. So I didn't do any September planting. The other thing that I would normally plant in September would be silver beet, but I'd actually already put some out, some plants directly from reseeding earlier in the winter, and they are starting off nicely now over in this bed. So basically in September I did no planting. Now at the beginning of October I'm planting, and I'll be planting again with other things for the warmer weather like the tomatoes, the pumpkins and the corn at the end of the month. So I'll cover that up and put another row up the other side. So this is a different variety that I'm putting in here to the other side, so nice to have a little bit of variation. But again, it's been open before, so It's may not be as viable, and covering it up. So that's used up a couple of scraps of seed. In this third bed, I've already planted some zucchini seed. I planted that when we cleaned this up a couple of days ago. I put in 2 varieties of zucchinis. Now you'll see I put sticks where they are just in case I needed to water. There's one variety here and the other 2 are the second variety. I will only grow ideally 3 zucchini plants in this bed. So while I put in 3 seeds of each type, if they all germinate, I will thin them back to just 1 plant. And 3 zucchini plants will give us quite sufficient zucchinis over the summer for our needs. Now here in this bed, you'll see there's a mass of silver beet, and that's from last year. It's giving a great spring burst, and it's really good not to take it out too soon, but to be able to get some of this. We'll enjoy some, and the hens will also enjoy some. But it won't be too long before this all comes out, and also some of the older kale in the bed next to it. That bed cleans up as well. I've got the bed with snow peas and kale, which will come along and replace the kale. I haven't yet made up my mind what will go into these beds, but one of these beds will get that later planting of carrots. But I'd expect to be planting some more lettuce across summer as well. So as I said, I'll be back at the end of this month planting more things, but for today, that's all I'm doing. So hopefully that's given you some ideas. It's time to get out and enjoy some of this beautiful spring weather.